really the only reason why we are here. We would not be here at all were it not for them. So we give honor and respect to them and appreciation for all of their sacrifices. And we're glad that you decided to spend this hour with us. And we'll get started just simply by hoping that you're at your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual strength, and that you're moving forward. And so we do have these options for you to donate to the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and we encourage you to support independent revolutionary African organization, which is exactly what we are. And our Ancestors' Voices, again, is a weekly program, same place, same time, sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP. And the AAPRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass Pan-African political party which is based in Africa. And our objective is Pan-Africanism, 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 which is defined as one unified socialist Africa, which we believe is the objective which will bring about the end of the powerlessness and suffering that African people face all over the planet Earth. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is not to be carried out on a whim or a hope or a prayer. It is an actual strategic strategy, which is outlined in great detail in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And our Ancestors' Voices is a program, one of many, by the APRP, which is sponsored each week. And this particular one is sponsored every week by myself, Ajamu, and Shakura, my biological and ideological daughter. We're both active organizers within the All African People's Revolutionary Party. There's no estrangement between us as parent and child. There's no negativity. We have our struggles like all human beings have their struggles, but we will always be united in our effort to maintain positive and inspirational relationships as parent and child, and more important than that, as revolutionaries fighting for our people's emancipation and our onward contribution to the forward progress of all of humanity. So to get us started, I will turn it over to Shakura.
Thank you, kind sir. Appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. So good day, everyone. We hope you all are doing well. It's a great day to be in an organization working for justice. And we're going to talk today about why you will start to see the benefits of that if you find yourself in that particular space, organizing with other people, trying to change the conditions for humanity everywhere. So we will start with talking about why not just being in an organization that's working for justice is key and necessary, but also why there should be some type of political education component to this organization that you are working very hard to make sure that justice loving people are seeking and receiving that justice that they should receive. And so when we think about political education, we're thinking about a very consistent, very disciplined process where there are expectations, responsibilities, if you will, that are put on you if you are a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We have a work study process that meets that same criteria in terms of how we engage and increasing our own political education. And I say that it's a very disciplined, high, well respected, and very responsible, engaging process because, yes, of course, there's this ongoing study. We're expected to be critical, we're expected to be analytical, and to have these readings that are completed so that we can come forth every 2 weeks and talk about what the readings meant. There's people who have responsibilities in terms of facilitating those discussions based on the affiliated readings. And so therefore they need to develop discussion questions and send those out in a timely manner so that other folks in the circle can be able to prepare and know exactly how they're planning to respond. So there's really a big push in terms of participation. There's a big push in terms of taking it seriously, making sure that your responsibilities are addressed so that you can be as prepared as possible for this meeting. And so I think that also entails, when we think about political education, I think we're thinking about what does it mean for us to increase our awareness of what's been going on in the world. And that's a huge, huge, huge part of it. Don't get me wrong. But you can't necessarily accomplish that if you're not literally taking the responsibility itself seriously. So if you're not yourself understanding that, that means you need to show up on time for the meeting, whether it's virtual or in person. If you're not yourself taking it seriously, that if you do have a responsibility, that means you need to adhere to it. Which means if your responsibility is creating discussion questions, that means you need to do the reading ahead of time so that you can create the discussion questions ahead of time and send those out in a timely manner so that the other folks can still be able to review them. If your responsibility is reading and no other facilitation, that means completing the reading by all costs so that you can be willing to participate, so that you can have something to say, so that you can aim to contribute. You know, we've had so many work study spaces where I'm learning that it's really important that we encourage everyone to participate and to speak. We don't really want people who are just on the call, not speaking and not contributing, because then it kind of makes it so that either we're not including them or that they're not participating themselves. And both are just not really our practice in terms of the AAPRP. In the All African People's Revolutionary Party, we try really hard to make sure that people feel heard, but we also have expectations that people want to come to these spaces because they know that they need to contribute, because that's really the collectivist approach that we have practiced since the onset of this organization's conception, right? And so with work study, it entails responsibility, it entails discipline, it entails being consistent, it entails showing up on time, it entails being prepared, it also entails participation, and it entails that if you're doing that, then you can really start to engage in what some of these ancestors have worked so hard in terms of bringing us this information. And so I will just take a quick pause and say, please make sure that you all donate to the patreon.com/Burkina Books. Our comrades in Burkina Faso are trying to raise money for new curriculum to be shared with the students and the comrades there. So please, you all, every coin that you donate helps us so that we can help raise money as an organization to send it to our comrades in Burkina Faso. But I'll say our ancestors on this Zoom slide. So we have Kwame Nkrumah on the far left, who wrote the book Africa Must Unite. We have Ahmed Sekou Touré in the middle, Africa on the Move. Amilcar Cabral wrote the book on the far left. I said far right for Kwame Nkrumah, I'm sorry. But on the far right, Amilcar Cabral wrote this book about unity and struggle. And then, of course, A Guide for Organizing Defense, the book that my dad wrote recently. These are all great examples of assuming you have responsibility intact, assuming that you're prepared, assuming that you're disciplined, assuming that you're taking this seriously because you are showing up for maybe your form of work study if you're not in the All African People's Revolutionary Party, or if you are, or even if you're not in either of those, but you are in a organization that has political education, then that means you can start to expose yourself to what some of the ancestors have been trying to teach us, because we all have come from a space where our ancestors have known that this world was not what it was supposed to be. And thankfully, we've had ancestors that were brave enough to write about the contradictions and publish it so that we had access to it. Because I think the other piece of this is when you're in the work study process, like in the All African People's Revolutionary Party, or if you're just increasing your political education, but it's rooted in a conscious, human loving socialist standpoint where you're not necessarily receiving information from sources that can't be trusted, that are driven by capitalist media outlets, but are actually driven by human loving, justice seeking people, then you can still be in a better position to have more information to better understand why capitalism functions the way that it does. You know, it's so important, you all, to be in an organization that's working for justice and to have political education, because you will find that even when you are not in a meeting for that organization, you will still be applying the values that you learned from that organization. You could be at the movie theater and still be applying those values that you were taking from the organization, your political education from that organization. I went to the movies last night. And I was just telling my dad that the movie stopped in the middle of the production. We didn't even get to watch the rest of it. It literally froze in the movie theater. And everybody in the theater was cursing. They were upset. They were very appalled, which understandably so. But my problem and my contradiction, because I am in a work study process, thankfully, I am increasing my political education. Many of the people in that theater are probably not. That's just the bottom line. So therefore, I have a higher conscience to understand that when the person who walked in, who appeared to be the manager, and apologize for the malfunction of the system, I understand that that is not that person's fault. I understand that that person may make $8, if that, an hour. I understand that that person is not getting benefits. I understand that that person does not make a livable wage. I understand that that person should not even have to be at the movie theater at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, because clearly, I'm sure there's something else they could be doing. But these are the circumstances that we find ourselves in, because each and every one of us is trying so hard to just survive under capitalism and to be a paycheck away from being on the street ourselves. And so the contradiction that I have, though, is that I understand that that's capitalism's fault that the movie stopped playing. There's got to be a reason that leads to capitalism, but that's a higher level of thinking that many people just simply lack. They lack that. And so instead, because they lack it, because they're not in organizations that are working for justice, and they're not being influenced by Amilcar Cabral or Sekou Touré or Ajamu Umi or Kwame Nkrumah or so many others that we can't even name right now because there's not enough time, that means that they're going to curse out the person that's making $8 an hour, because they don't even understand that that's not even the real person that's in charge. They don't even understand that. They just want to take their frustration out on someone. But yet, if they were practicing humanistic values, or what we call in the AAPRP, revolutionary African personality, which means that you're always humanist, you're always collectivist, you're always egalitarian. You're not just doing those things when you're in a work study meeting, right? You're doing those things all the time in your life, because that's who you are all the time. The organization is inside of you. You are not just practicing that when you are in the organization meeting, but in every aspect of your life, as I just said, even when you go to the movie theaters. And so I think it's just really important to understand how key political education is, because as I said before, if you're not careful, then you'll let uncredible sources influence your decisions. You'll let uncredible sources have an impact on your life, and be able to determine and help kind of corroborate what decisions you're going to make, what kind of choices you're going to do, what you're going to buy. Media influences everything in terms of what kind of things you purchase, what kind of things you put in your cart, what kind of things you purchase for other people. And all of that is based on how capitalism is constantly studying ways to profit off of us. Every single one of us constantly studying ways to profit. Everything from the teeth whitening creams all the way to what kind of blankets we need to buy because the weather is changing, to what kind of car we need to drive, to how we need to wear our hair, what kind of dog we need to have. I mean, all of that is influenced by capitalism, every single piece of it. And if you disagree with me, I dare you to challenge me, because I promise you, I will find a way to connect it back to making money, because that's the bottom line of everything. And so the moral of this slide is that if you are not increasing your political education, which means you're probably not in an organization that's working for justice either, then how are you going to be able to decipher the BS and the uncredible information from the credible things that we see on this slide? How are you going to be able to tell what the humanitarian positions are? How are you going to be able to tell that the ancestors have been writing about this for decades? Because they were facing some of the same problems we are facing. The only difference is we have more technology now that influences our ignorance so much more than it did when they first published these books. It influences so much more. And so that's very dangerous, because if technology is influencing our decisions, then that means it's also influencing what? Our ideology. And I think the moral of increasing your political education that I'm trying to get across is, when you have more political education in your realm and in your sphere, that means it's going to affect how you think. And if it affects how you think, it's going to affect the choices that you make, because you're going to start to cultivate those choices to be centered on humanity. You're going to cultivate those choices to be centered on helping people. You're going to cultivate those choices centered on building your organization that is working for justice, because you're going to believe that at the end of the day, that organization is going to be the only thing that's going to be able to save every single one of us. And therefore, you're going to believe you would do nothing. You would stop at nothing to make sure that that organization has everything it needs to thrive. Because in some circumstances, that could be the only thing that we have left. And so we should think about that a little bit more deeply, because political education is all we have at the end of the day. Next slide, please. Political education is all we have. And so as we continue to lean into that, we should think about the beauty of that. We should think about the beauty of knowing that political education is all we have. And we should also think about how powerful that is, that we get to control what kind of information we have access to. We're not just stuck being influenced by capitalist media. That's out there, of course, but we can always choose to turn off that media. We can always choose to find a free PDF of Amilcar Cabral on Google Scholar and get busy. I found Dr. UEP New's dissertation a year ago, and no, I have not read it yet, but my plan is to read it, and I paid nothing for it because I know how to find things and I know exactly what I'm looking for. So my point is the information is out there. You don't have to buy Kwame Nkrumah's book. You can definitely find a free PDF of it. If you prefer PDFs, you can do that. The question remains, though, are you motivated to do that? Or is it just easier to stream media that doesn't really challenge you to think on a different level? That's the other piece of this is our people need people who are okay with thinking. And our people need people who are okay with understanding that you don't know everything. And that is okay. That is okay to not know everything. It's actually impossible for you to know everything because you haven't been on this earth long enough to know everything. You still have a lot of stuff that you need to learn. And that's where the humility comes from. I have been studying my dissertation topic since I started my graduate program. That was 9 years ago, if you include my master's. I've been studying the same topic for 9 years. That's enough time for me to be able to say, I feel like I could be an expert. But you know what? I still have so much to learn. I have so much to learn, and I'm learning that as I'm writing this dissertation. It's really quite scary because it's like, wow, am I even validated to write this dissertation? Because there's still so much out there that I don't know. But I understand from a humble standpoint, my job is to get this information, get it out to the people. And this is why we say what we do with the information is key, right? How we use this information that can advance the struggles of people. That is the important part. Are you using what you're gaining from political education so that you can build your wallet? Or are you using it because you understand that the circumstances that humanity finds themselves in is despicable and we should be doing everything to stop that? Are you using the information from your political education to find ways to have more housing opportunities for the unhoused? Are you using your political education to figure out ways, maybe your passion is animals? Are you using it to figure out ways to help the animals that are on the streets and don't have a place to go? How are you using the information you're obtaining and securing to change the conditions of the world that we live in? Because if you're using it for an individualistic benefit, then you are no different from the capitalists that we are clearly trying to separate ourselves from. We don't want to be influenced by you if you're letting capitalists influence you, because your brain is going to be tainted. It's going to be toxic, and it's going to be based on mistruths and uncalculated, invalued things that we don't have benefits for. We don't want to have any part of that. We need people who are increasing their political education because they understand, again, that the credible information they're finding, the resources that are out there based on years and years of research, but also based on people who have literally lived through these same struggles we're going through. Every single person that we saw on that past slide has gone through some type of horrific event that has impacted African people on a massive global level. And they took the opportunity to write about that in that moment in time so that whoever picked up the book in the future would be able to have a better understanding of A, how to combat colonialism, B, how to combat neocolonialism, C, how to deal with economic greed and capitalism, or D, how to deal with social constructs and social revolutionary issues that can affect your ability to achieve what you believe to be a socialist continent, if that truly is your goal. And so these books are kind of tools that you would use in your toolbox to help us better understand what all of these folks were going through when they were trying to push those same lines, when they were trying to talk about socialism and people laughed at them, when they were trying to talk about why socialism is really the key and people didn't take them seriously. This is nothing new. This is why they wrote about it, because they wanted us to understand what they went through, but they also wanted us to understand that it was possible to get through to people. They wanted us to understand that every time we fought the neo-colonizers, we were able to regain independence. We were able to regain control. We were able to regain and determine how we wanted proceeds to be maneuvered, because there was determination and there was decision making because of the control of land. And so I think it's really important to understand that political education is literally our lifeline at this point. Capitalism has done everything it can to abuse, to annihilate, to misinterpret, to miscalculate, to destroy any pure information that we have available to us so that we can understand that we are some of the most powerful people on this world. Colonized people, I'm saying. Colonized poor people are some of the most powerful people on this world because we still have something to gain by getting our land back. And capitalism, that frightens capitalism to think about that. Because that means all the private corporations who are still making their money right now, they know that as long as we continue to remain powerless, they will be in power. But the minute we start to recognize what our worth is, the minute we start to recognize what our land's worth is, the minute we start to recognize why we need to fight for our land so that we can get our power back and make determining decisions on how the resources on that land are developed and disseminated and processed and sold and all of these things, that's going to mean so much difference for how those people from that land are then treated. Because you must understand that the resources from the land would make the land as profitable as possible. This is why capitalism is exploiting these lands. So if we kick the capitalist people out and we regain control, that's going to be a huge groundbreaking change for African people. It's going to be a huge groundbreaking change for Irish people, huge groundbreaking change for Asian people, huge groundbreaking change for indigenous Palestinians. The list goes on and on. So this is why we need to understand that political education is literally our thumping heartbeat. It is literally our artery. It's passing blood through our veins as we speak. Because political education is our accountability. It is our advocacy. It is our self-efficacy for us to decide that we want a different circumstance. And the best way for us to go about changing the course of today is to understand what our people have done before us. They have literally left us breadcrumbs. It's insulting, actually, that we're not more interested in what they had to say because these people have already lived through it. As I said, the only difference is now with technology, the issue has exacerbated itself, but it has still been the same issue. So we have to understand it is a privilege to be able to control what we ascertain in terms of information, but we need to take responsibility for that. We need to find a way to do more research. We need to find a way to access these books. We need to find a way to build more lists so that we can have more authors that we should be pursuing and studying. We need to take that. We need to take initiative and responsibility for that. And if we understand that, then we can have a better way of understanding how to detect the lies that much faster. I am getting so much better now that I am approaching my third year of work study, to the tune where when people say stuff to me, I say, well, capitalism. And they're like, huh, you don't need it. And I'm like, yeah, I do, because it's so and so. And then I just break it down. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. And then by the same token, I say, but with socialism, you wouldn't have to worry about that because of da. Or with socialism, maybe you do have to worry about it, but there would be systems in place because of da. And they have da, and they do. And so then it starts to become something different. But the only way I've been able to come to that place is because I've been trying my hardest to soak up as much information as I can. As I said, the ancestors could have easily had this information and did nothing with it, but they chose to document it and share it with us, you all. That is a gift. And if we don't take time to appreciate and acknowledge that, we should do so right now. That is a gift. Because if they didn't document how to do this and how to navigate this, we would be so much worse off than we already are. It's because of them that we have created this organization, which is why this broadcast is being brought to you today. It's because of them that other organizations have been created. And so we thank them. We are grateful for them. And the best way that we can live out their legacy and not insult them further is by taking the coins and the breadcrumbs that they have given us. That's why this last bullet is so important. We have a choice, you all. We have a choice. Life is about choices. And if you decide that you would rather believe capitalist media than believe your own ancestors, who knew what colonization was before we even knew. In 2023, they were writing about it in 1857. I mean, that would just be ridiculous to not already listen to somebody who has information. If you have any respect for elderly people, then you understand what I'm saying right now. And so with that, I will close. But political education and joining an organization working for justice, those are choices. And the time is running low where you need to make a decision. Ashe.
Ashe, thank you very much. It's so key. I know there's probably people that are like, what does what you're talking about have to do with social media? And if people are saying that, they really miss the essence of what needs to be said. But I'll say first, before we get further into that, again, just reminding people the URL is at the top of the screen, www.patreon, P as in Paul, A, T as in Tanzania, REON as in Namibia.com/Burkina Books. You want to go there to that URL and contribute to our APRP comrades on the ground in Burkina Faso who are building political education processes in that country. If you pay any attention to the news, you hopefully see what's going on in the Sahel region of Africa. And actually, one of our key organizers in Burkina Faso, for those of you who live here in Northern California, is going to be here Tuesday at San Jose State University speaking about the situation in Burkina Faso and the Sahel region of Africa. So if you want information about that event, reach out to www.abetterworld.me and we'll give you all of the details about it. But let's talk about today's reality with social media, because Shakura was talking about the necessity of independent revolutionary political education. And we're using that independent revolutionary political education as the barometer of where we want to be compared to where we are and the problems with where we are, right? So with the reality of today's social media, let's talk for a moment about the capitalist ruling classes. And again, this is another political education problem. Most of us don't really have a firm understanding of what capitalism is, what it is as a system, how it operates, any of that. We don't really understand that. And then even a lot of us who are attempting to organize against oppression, we don't really understand that, how can I say, as humanistically as possible, we don't really understand that, how to do that with humility. A lot of us are doing our work driven by ego. We don't think that it is, but it is ego. And the way you can tell that it's ego is that we want things to happen when we want things to happen, the way we want things to happen. And the world is not what you want it to be. The world is what it is. And anybody who is going to successfully organize people has to understand that. People are not going to move just because you want them to move, nor because they should move. Yeah, they should move, but that doesn't mean that they're going to move. And if you're going to move people, you have to understand that and approach that with humility. So because we have all of these contradictions, it gets so convoluted as to, what's really happening and what we need to do to resolve conflicts that are preventing us from moving forward. So the first thing we want to point out in regards to that is the capitalist ruling classes they figured out ways to dominate social media. And what we mean by that is, especially those of you who live in the West, right? You heard them in 2016. I mean, that's 7 years ago. What is it, 8 years, whatever the hell it is. And they were talking about how Russia was manipulating social media using white supremacist themes to advance the political campaign for president here. And we're not advancing, any of those theories. We're not, you should know us better than that we're not doing that. But the point we're making is that if you heard that, what that should have told you is that there are governments on this planet who are using their vast capabilities and resources to control messaging. And my point for bringing up what they were saying in 2016 and 2020 in this backward country is because you better know in 2023 that if the United Snakes is accusing someone of doing that, you can bet your life that they already have been doing what they're accusing somebody else of doing. There's no way in hell you're going to convince me that Russia or China or anybody is doing anything. They love to talk about China controls TikTok. I don't give a damn, because whatever China's doing with TikTok, you were doing it with your capitalist system way before. In fact, whatever China's doing, they learned it from you. So this is what we have to understand, is that the capitalist system uses its influence to control messages on social media on a mass scale. So like you see this coon on the screen, Black Lives MAGA. I don't know who raised this coon. I mean, where are his parents? Like what community did he come from? When I see these people, that's the first thing I think about is who raised them? Who are their people? Where did they come from? What the hell? Who wasn't doing their job so that a fool could end up being a fool like this? But the point we're making is that these people, a lot of them, you all, are not acting on their own volition. They're not acting on their own inspiration. They're not acting on their own innovation. They're being paid to perform these minstrel roles that they're performing by large corporate interests. And they may not even really understand that that's what's happening. You know, they may be told, like, what do you think about this? Oh, well, I don't know, you know, Donald Trump, you know, I saw him on TV and I thought he was kind of cool. Okay, well, Negro, here, we have a job for you. You do this, and, you know, we have some funding from people that watch our channel. We can share it with you if you're willing to say what you just said in that convoluted way on a video. Then we can, okay, I'll do it because I need some, my rent due. They about to repossess my car. You know, that's all it takes, right? That's all it takes for us to fall for that kind of stupid okie doke. So that's what's happening with a lot of this stuff. This is not these people's individual initiative that's putting them out there projecting the backward messages that they're projecting. And what I'm talking about when I say that is there are a number of Africans, for example, who are on social media, on TikTok, YouTube, wherever they are, and they're advancing a lot of anti-African themes, anti-African liberation themes, anti-communist themes, all of these things, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ. There are a lot of Africans on social media advancing these views. And you can tell that these views are not originating with the people on the videos advancing them. And you'll ask, well, how do you know that? Well, the way I know that is because I take initiative to interact with some of these idiots. Like, I know how to write and respond in a provocative way that can get people to respond. I mean, I'm a writer. I've written books. I know how to do this. I know how to get under people's skin. I just don't do it because I don't do it regularly because that's not how I'm trying to organize. I'm trying to organize people to dedicate their lives to a struggle for justice and liberation. So that's not based on manipulation. But sometimes it's helpful to understand what you're dealing with when you're dealing with our enemies. So I'll use some of those skills to get in contact with some of these people. And more often than not, they respond and I engage them in questions. Because as Shakur has mentioned about our work study, we study history. We know history. So I engage these idiots. And they can't ever respond with any kind of intelligence to the most basic questions, right? And that's how I know they didn't initiate what they have on the air, because if they did, they would be able to respond like that. And so that gets into the last point I have on this slide, which is a lot of these people are they're just doing this to chase clout. You know, they don't even believe what they're articulating. It's just a way for them to chase individual personal clout. And that's disgraceful. You know, that's absolutely disgraceful, because what they're doing is they're selling out our people's legitimate struggle for justice to get some coin from the master. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a human being that deserves nothing better than what they used to do in Azania back in the 80s, where they would capture people like that and they would throw tires on them, throw oil on them, and set them on goddamn fire. And I don't give a damn if you think that's evil to say that or not. I don't care what you think. I'm saying that when people, the most vicious crime in humanity is being ungrateful. And our ancestors have sacrificed their lives so that we could be here, so that a dumbass coon could sell out our people for a few dollars. Then that's exactly what I believe. And there's something the hell wrong with you if you don't believe that. So that has to be said, that's the problem. And then political education versus social media soundbites, since we've already established that these corporations are instigating a lot of these perspectives that you see that are so damaging and so anti-African, anti-communist, anti-women, anti-intellectual. You know, like I had one, I'll give you two quick examples. I had one Negro he was talking about women today, they don't want to date. Well, you know, that, I mean, you can make an argument, and that's the strategy they use. They take one little kernel of truth and they expand it to represent a vast quantity of analysis. So this person's saying, well, you know, African women don't want to date African men, and they, you know, they're just looking for money. And I, you know, a lot of people say that. And so I challenged them and I said, well, if that's true, I don't think it's true, but if that's true, then why would that be? Like, it can only be two reasons why. One is that, you know, you're saying African women are just immoral, you know, instinctively immoral, right? Or which would mean you'd have to say your mama is instinctively immoral, right? Because you can't say, well, it's only some of them. That would have to be universal if that's true on a scientific level, right? Otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to pick and choose, like, well, this one's immoral, and that, how do you do that, right? So, you know, that doesn't make any sense. So it's either that, or you're saying, or you have to have some type of analysis attached to that, where you're saying that there are some social conditions and things that have happened that may, on a social level, driven a lot of African women to take the approach that I need to look out for myself. And I said, and I think it's the latter one, because nobody else is looking out for African women. And my experience has been, because I haven't dogged out any African women in my life. I'm 61 years old. I've never done that. So because I haven't done that, I haven't seen those kind of negative attributes from African women. I'm married to an African woman, and I have an African daughter. I have an African sister. I have African women comrades, and I interact with each and every one of them on a consistent basis. I've never seen any of that negativity. In fact, I would argue that nobody on the planet Earth has your back more than African women. That's been my experience, just to be truthful. That doesn't mean that I've not always appreciated that, because I'm a human being just like you. But I'm saying that's the objective truth. So this is an example of like how, when you go deeper with a political education analysis, you can get below the surface analyses that pose as intellectual argument on social media. And so, you know, sound political education requires scientific evidence to support your theories, i.e., we give the example of our work study circle process in the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Our argument is that that process provides the participants with solid evidence to support the theories that we advocate. So we don't just say, well, Pan-Africanism will solve the problems African people face. We can explain how Pan-Africanism will solve the problems our people face in ways that you will not be able to refute. You might get mad, you don't want to hear whatever, we don't give a damn. You cannot say, well, that's wrong because of this. That's what political education does for you. And so, for example, I'll give another example. When we say capitalism is exploitative and racist because of the system of colonialism and slavery, we can back that up with evidence. So I had this one cracker was on social media, and I engaged him. And he was saying that as a European, he should not be blamed for slavery because he didn't own any slaves. And I know you've heard that before, because it's an old, tired talking point, you know, old, tired, decrepit, rashy talking point. But they keep using it because most of us don't have a response to it, because we're not politically educated. We don't understand how to respond to it. A lot of us, well, that's true, you wasn't there. I don't know why they blaming you, because he had a Negro on there with him saying exactly that. So I reached out and I said, well, you're not going to reduce this to whether an individual European had direct ties to slavery. That's irrelevant. We don't give a damn about you and your direct ties. The reason why we're talking about slavery in 2023 is because Every aspect of the political and economic system that exists today is a manifestation of the slave system. And I gave him examples of how the banking system that operates today is a direct result of seed money that was supplied by the transatlantic slave trade. The insurance industry today, all these corporations, Brooks Brothers started by making clothes for our ancestors to wear on the goddamn slave plantation. So if Brooks Brothers is a multinational corporation today, that's our goddamn money. If Shell is rich because they steal money from the Niger Delta, that's our goddamn money. If De Beers is the richest diamond company in the world in 2023 because they stole all our diamonds from the Congo and Southern Africa, that is our goddamn money. That's what I told that cracker. No response. So that's an example, you all, of we have the ability to explain where we're coming from in ways that these clowns cannot refute. That's why you should want to be politically educated. Now, on the flip side of that, social media sound bites get by with producing rotten cakes that have great tasting frosting. And that's what I meant when I said they tell a kernel of truth, but the majority of what they're presenting is absolute garbage. So the cake is absolutely rotten, but the frosting tastes great. So we'll dip our finger in the frosting, don't even go deeper and explore the rotten ass cake and think, oh, wow, that's a great cake. And that's what all of us do. And that's why we get so easily confused, because we don't have the political education skills to go deeper. For example, social media videos that display smash and grab robberies. So this picture on the screen is showing, you see these everywhere. You see these pictures and these videos, supposedly Africans stealing from these stores. Now, let me just say, first off, I don't give a damn if Africans are going in stores and taking stuff out of it. Look at what this is jewelry. The jewelry was stolen from Africa anyway. So you'll never convince me that an African going in a store and taking the jewelry out without paying the thieves that stole it in the first place for it is a crime. I mean, you got to be out of your goddamn mind if you expect me to believe that. I don't give a damn if they went in all the stores and took everything out. The only problem I have with them, whoever's doing that, if they're doing it, is they're not doing it like the Black Liberation Army to appropriate the struggle for liberation, providing resources to organizations fighting for liberation. They're just keeping the money so that they can go out and buy cars and all kind of BS. That's my problem with them. But I just want to establish that so we are clear what we're talking about. I'm not buying this oh God, the crime in the cities. The crime took place when you stole the land from the indigenous people. There's no law and order here. There never has been, and it never will be. All of this is built on theft and murder. So how the hell you're gonna pick on our people taking $3,000 worth of jewelry, and now that's great crime that none of us can. I mean, get out of my damn face with that nonsense. I don't want to hear it. But even if, for the sake of argument, you look at these pictures, right? I don't know what the hell's going on there. Now, the inference is that it's Africans doing it. That's what they want you to think. But I don't know who's doing that. It could be the FBI dressing up as people, staging this stuff to make it look like it's us so that they could justify a massive law and order campaign against our people. And you might say, well, that's kind of far-fetched, Mr. Umi, but that's because you're a dumbass idiot and you don't know the history of the FBI and the CIA. When they went into the Congo in the early 1960s to try to stabilize neocolonialism, they took Africans from all over the world because they were trying to create the image in the world that the Africans in the Congo did not support the national Congolese movement in Patrice Lumumba. They were trying to present that image. And so to do that, they couldn't get Congolese because the majority of Congolese people did support Patrice Lumumba and the national Congolese movement. So they brought all these people who had never even been to the Congo. A lot of them never even been to Africa, and they put them in the Congo. And the national Congolese movement, the people who were fighting there in 1964, the MNC and they were backed by the Cubans. Che Guevara was there. So that's why you can't tell us a goddamn thing about Che Guevara. He was there in the Congo fighting alongside our people to run the neo-colonialists and the capitalists out of the Congo. And they captured some of these people I'm telling you about in the Congo. And these people spoke Spanish. They were not Congolese. They were African Cubans who were against the Cuban Revolution, that were recruited by the CIA. They couldn't even speak Kiswahili or Lingala or any of the languages that are spoken in the Congo. They had one Negro that was from Cleveland, Ohio, and he had stolen cars, and they told him, go down to Africa and do what we tell you to do, or you're going to prison for auto theft. This Negro didn't speak nothing but broken ass English. So I know what these people are capable of, these intelligence agencies. So that's why with our political education, I don't see a picture like this and say, wow, our people are robbing and I wouldn't do that anyway, but I would never do that because I know there's always a rotten cake under the frosting in this backward ass capitalist system. I know that. So I got to do much more analysis. And that's why political education, you all, is so important, because if you don't have it, you will believe whatever the hell they want you to believe. And a lot of us do. You can't refute that. A lot of you, if you don't believe it, you got family and friends that do, because they don't know how to dig any deeper than the frosting. All they know how to do is dip their fingers in the frosting. Ooh, that tastes good. And the cake underneath it is absolutely rotten. They never even get there. They don't even know how to get to the cake. All they know how to do is look at the damn frosting. And they come with this surface level analysis that frosting brings. And that's how they get us. That's how they keep us confused. So political education versus social media, right? So political education seeks to create an informed populace who are qualified to properly assess what's going on in the world. We don't have that right now, you all. Well, the Russia has invaded Ukraine. You don't know what that means. You can't even give an analysis on it. If I walked up to you and said, give me a concrete political analysis of what's happening in Ukraine right now, and I'll give you $500 cash, you couldn't get the $500. You know, I used to do this thing speaking to high school students, and I go in there and I had a map. I put a map up, and then I stick a $20 bill on in one of the ocean areas of the map with a pen. And I'd say, anybody, and I cover the map, the countries are covered. And I'd say, anybody that can tell me, can point while it's covered up, just in the general region, not even exact, just the general region where Afghanistan or Iraq are, you get this $20 bill. Because I would ask them before that, like, tell me how you feel about Iraq, and they're terrorists there, they're Al-Qaeda, they're this, they're that. Oh, we should flush them. Okay, so tell me where they are on the map. Couldn't do that. I said, okay, I'll give you a bonus round. Name at least 2 or 3 cities in Afghanistan, 2 or 3 cities in Iraq. Couldn't do that. Name a popular musician from Iraq, just one from Afghanistan. Name one food that they eat. Couldn't do that. They couldn't even hardly name, every once in a while somebody might get it, but they couldn't even hardly tell me what language is spoken. I'd ask them, it's a trick question, what's the dominant language in Afghanistan? And they'd say Arabic, French. They didn't know. And the truth is, there really isn't, a lot of people in Afghanistan speak Farsi. A lot of people speak Urdu. There isn't really one, like in the United States, English is clearly the language most people speak. It's not really the reality there. So my point is that we don't have that. We don't have an informed population. And so because we don't have an informed population, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told us, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And that's really where we are right now. We fall for it. Whatever these people tell us, that's what we believe. And you can't deny it. We believe every goddamn thing they tell us. They said that the Nation of Islam assassinated Malcolm X, and you can turn your head left and you can find an African that believes that. They told us that Cuba is a dictatorship and the people there, African people, have no freedom. You turn your head right, you can find some clown and fool that believes that. They told us on social media that African women don't want to date African men. They just want to be men themselves. And you look forward 10 feet, within 10 feet, you find some fool that believes that and doesn't have any analysis about it, no understanding, nothing. They told us that LGBTQ people are threatening our families. I had someone tell me that yesterday. And I said, so what do you think are the problems that African people face? Would you agree that, or just even a society, I didn't even say African people, what are the problems society faces? Would you agree that houselessness is a problem? Yes. Would you agree that quality education and access to quality healthcare is a problem? Yes. Would you agree poverty is a problem? Yes. Would you agree that police terrorism is a problem? Yes, this person agreed with that. Would you agree with all the other things? I said, so show me how LGBTQ people, trans people, have anything to do with perpetuating any of those things that are problems for humanity. And I said, I don't want to hear a bunch of, I just want to hear, it's a simple question. Tell me how, because my point is that I don't see, I'm a whatever you want to call it, heterosexual man, whatever the hell it is. But I don't see any way that LGBTQ people, trans people are responsible for any of the ills that I face as an African human being on the planet Earth. So that tells me, because I'm an intelligent mind, that somebody is planting that narrative there so that I can focus on them instead of who I should be focused on, which is the backward, decadent capitalist system. Now, I can tell you all kind of ways that the capitalist system causes pain and suffering for our people and all of humanity. I can tell you that in my sleep. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about being able to make the proper assessment, right? And being able to do that. And social media is designed to provide entertainment. You know, rewards, individual clout. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Like entertainment is not a bad thing. Spreading information is not a bad thing. But we have to understand that as a people who lack political education, this has become a dangerous thing that's used primarily against us. That's all. We have to recognize that. Instead of acting like it's something neutral that we who are involved in no political education have complete control over how it impacts our thinking, that's insanity to believe that. There's no question that we're being influenced by people that don't have our interest at heart. And we need to understand that. And social media can and should be used to advance the people's struggle. Like, we should use it like that. Like, I see all these wonderful videos on TikTok by people from the Asian community talking about anti-African racism in their community. This is a wonderful way to use social media. And now I'm starting to see a lot of the same videos from our indigenous Latino people saying anti-African. Well, that's correct, because this society was built on anti-African white supremacy. So of course, everybody that's here is going to recognize that the way I can get ahead of this society is to jump on that train. Of course, that's true. And if we're honest as African people, a lot of our own people jump on the anti-African train. You know, I said this before, my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's. And she can't remember, she was in the hospital a few days ago, and she can't even remember, she lives here. She can't even remember that. She didn't remember. You tell her you were in the hospital. I know I wasn't. She can't even remember that. But yet, when we told her we're going to Africa in a couple of months, well, don't get eaten by no gorillas. So even with Alzheimer's, white supremacy still stands strong. Even with Alzheimer's, it stands strong. So we need to have more of us utilizing social media in that same way, because most of what we have on there is a bunch of coon foolishness. I see a couple of Africans, and big ups to them, that are trying. There's one young African with locks, and he tries to really articulate, you know, what happened with slavery, and he does an excellent job. But other than him, and there's a couple of sisters that do it, as well, and they do an excellent job. But other than those few people, you know, they're outnumbered. The majority of Africans on there are doing coon games and doing right-wing stuff, and, you know, should be run out of town on a rail. So people with any consciousness, you know, of course, we have a responsibility to hype up and advance social media that produces people first content. That's our responsibility. So if you know how to, I would love to make videos. I would love to make videos that can let more people know about these programs, but I don't have those skills. So if you do, help the African Revolution. Reach out and say, hey, I'll donate an hour and show you how to do this. That would be wonderful. We are asking for that kind of help. We need you to do that so that we can begin to counter all these negative messages that are out there. And so we definitely want to thank you for joining us today. And next week is going to be a groundbreaking program. We really want to invite you to prioritize coming back for that. We have the wrong topic up there. We're not talking about best practices for supporting revolutionary organizations. That's a wonderful topic, but sorry about that. Instead, we're going to be talking about imperialism's sabotage of the Congo in Central Africa and why Pan-Africanist efforts to stop the sabotage were not successful. Very, very, very important topic. Imperialism sabotage in the Congo and why Pan-Africanist efforts to stop it were not successful. So please make sure you join us next week. Go to the APRP Forward Ever shop and support independent revolutionary African organization. Help us spread positive messages. Stop wearing Nike and Adidas and wear Pan-African messages. That's a wonderful thing. Go to aprp-intl.org and sign up to join an All African People's Revolutionary Party work-study circle. That is a really good thing for you to do in your life. Go to abetterworld.me. You can go there if you're in Northern California, you want to find about our program from our visiting organizer from Burkina Faso this Tuesday at San Jose State University. Reach out to abetterworld.me. We'll give you the details on that. And go to Hood Communist, Independent Revolutionary African Voices. Support that blog, please. We have the QR code there for the Thomas Sankara Center for Liberation and Pan-African Unity that our organizer is coming here representing, as well as the APRP. So put your smartphone up to the QR code and please donate to our work taking place on the ground in Burkina Faso. You all support all of these programs that we do in the APRP any way that you can, every way that you can. Support each and every one of them. We will have a program coming up in the Bay Area, also on Sahel. We'll announce that one next week. Buy my book, a guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. Well, I already bought it. I ain't read it, but I bought it. Well, then go ahead and tell somebody else. Support the struggle for liberation, because I need to buy more knee pads. We're trying to, you know, we fight these white supremacists here, and I need some knee pads because I tackle people. So I need to be able to have some knee pads so I can, and then I can train other people how to use them. So buy the book. Thank you for joining us. We are winning, you all. So stay strong. Forward ever, backwards never. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. We hopefully look forward to seeing you next week.